On the afternoon of December 5, 1945, the skies above Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale were painted in blinding shades of sapphire and gold. It was a weather setup pilots dreamed about: gentle winds, sharp visibility, and a calm Atlantic stretching endlessly toward the horizon. 5 Grumman TBM Avenger torpedo bombers squatted on the tarmac, their heavy radial engines vibrating through the hot concrete. 14 men climbed aboard for what was supposed to be a routine 2-hour navigational training exercise known as Problem Number 1. Flight 19 was led by Lieutenant Charles Carroll Taylor, a seasoned veteran with over 2,500 flight hours, many accrued over the Pacific during the bloodiest years of World War II. To the young trainees sitting in the cramped glass-canopied cockpits behind him, the flight was just another stepping stone toward their final wings. By 2:10 p.m., the roar of 1,400 horsepower swelled into a deafening symphony as the 5 planes tore down the runway and rose smoothly into the sky. They flew east toward the Hens and Chickens shoals to conduct practice bombing runs, dropping their dummy ordnance on the shallow, shimmering reef. Everything proceeded with textbook precision. The bombs hit their targets, the formation regrouped, and the flight swung east toward the open sea. But as they turned to complete the second leg of their triangular path, the serene blue atmosphere began to curdle into something altogether alien. A phantom wind began to blow, not from one direction, but as if the atmosphere itself were twisting in place.
At 3:45 p.m., the tower at Fort Lauderdale picked up a transmission that sounded subtly fractured with tension. Lieutenant Taylor was not communicating with the base directly, but talking to one of his student pilots, Captain Edward Powers. "Both my compasses are out," Taylor's voice crackled through the speaker, carrying an unexpected edge of strain. "I'm trying to find Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I'm over land, but it's broken. I'm sure I'm in the Keys, but I don't know how far down." Ground control operators exchanged puzzled glances. If Taylor were over the Florida Keys, he would have had to fly hundreds of miles off course in a direction opposite to his flight plan. More strangely, the land below them was described as a labyrinth of unfamiliar cays, surrounded by water that shifted color unnaturally under a sun that seemed suddenly dimmed. Ground control urged Taylor to switch his radio frequency to the emergency channel, but the flight leader inexplicably refused, citing fears that he would lose contact with the other 4 aircraft in his formation. Inside the cockpits, a subtle panic began to spread. The young trainees could see the sun through their canopies, yet their instruments insisted that up was down and west was east. Whispers of confusion bounced across the squadron's private frequency. One student pilot's voice broke through the static, raw with growing dread. "If we would just fly west, we'd get home. Head west, damn it." But military discipline held them in formation behind their leader, blindly following a commander whose instruments were leading them deeper into the maze. By 5 p.m., the calm weather had completely dissolved into a violent nightfall. Squalls tore through the ocean's surface, churning 30-foot waves that swallowed the horizon in white foam. Dark, anvil-shaped clouds rushed down from the north, trapping Flight 19 between a roaring storm above and a treacherous ocean below. Fuel needles hovered dangerously close to the empty line. Through increasing static, radio operators on the mainland listened helplessly to the fading dialogue of doomed men. Taylor's transmissions became fragmented, shadowed by disorientation. "We can't tell where we are," he reported, his voice hollow. Everything is wrong. Even the ocean doesn't look as it should. The ocean had turned from its familiar navy hue into a swirling, incandescent turquoise mist that seemed to blend seamlessly into the cloud ceiling. Spatially disoriented, flying in circles as the wind whipped them further out into the open Atlantic, the 5 bombers were running out of time. At 6:04 p.m., Taylor's voice floated through the static one last time, barely audible over the roaring storm. "All planes close up tight. We'll have to ditch unless we hit landfall. When the first plane drops below 10 gallons, we all go down together." As night slammed down over the raging ocean, the Navy mobilized a massive search and rescue operation. At 7:27 p.m., a Martin PBM Mariner flying boat, a giant twin-engine patrol bomber equipped for heavy sea landings, took off from Port Banana River with a crew of 13 men. Its mission was simple: ride out into the storm, locate the ditching coordinates of Flight 19, and pull any survivors from the violent waters. 3 minutes into its ascent along the Florida coast, the Mariner transmitted a routine radio check. It was the last sound the giant aircraft ever made. Off the coast of Smyrna, the crew of the SS Gaines Mills, a merchant tanker steaming through the gale, looked up to see a massive fireball erupting in the sky. A plume of flame shot hundreds of feet into the storm clouds, burning intensely for 10 minutes before plunging into the sea. The ship altered course toward the crash site, hunting for survivors amidst an oil-slicked ocean, but found nothing. No wreckage, no flight gear, and no trace of the 13 men aboard. In a single evening, the sky had claimed not 5 planes, but 6, along with 27 souls. For weeks after the disaster, the United States Navy conducted one of the largest search operations in modern history. Hundreds of ships, aircraft, and submarine chasers combed over 250,000 square miles of the Atlantic Ocean, searching every tiny island, reef, and patch of seafloor. They found not a single oil slick, no floating Mae West life jackets, no life rafts, and no floating metal debris from the 5 Avengers or the giant Mariner. It was as if 27 men and 6 heavy military warplanes had simply evaporated from the physical plane. The official Naval Board of Inquiry launched an exhaustive investigation. They scrutinized Lieutenant Taylor's record, analyzed weather maps, and dissected every line of intercepted radio chatter. Initially, the Navy attributed the loss to human error, suggesting Taylor had misidentified his position and led his squadron out into the open ocean until their fuel ran out. However, under intense pressure from Taylor's family, who argued that an experienced combat veteran would not foolishly fly 5 planes into oblivion without an unprecedented atmospheric or equipment failure, the Navy revised its official verdict. The final official record changed the cause of the disappearance to a chilling phrase, "Cause unknown." The loss of Flight 19 did not merely become a footnote in naval history, it laid the cornerstone for modern mythology. It was this exact incident, with its bizarre radio reports of broken compasses, discolored waters, and impossible geography, that gave birth to the legend of the Bermuda Triangle. Decades have passed. Advanced side-scan sonar has mapped the Atlantic floor, and deep-sea submersibles have explored the deepest trenches off the coast of Florida. Yet the 5 Avenger bombers have never been recovered. Over the years, salvage teams have stumbled upon isolated wrecked Avengers resting in the deep water off the Florida coast, raising brief glimmers of hope. But each time, serial number checks revealed the wrecks to be unrelated individual accidents from the war era. The 5 planes of Patrol 19 remain unfound, locked away in an underwater vault known only to the sea. As the sun sets over Fort Lauderdale today, the tarmac where Flight 19 took off remains mostly unchanged. The wind still blows off the Atlantic, warm and carrying the scent of salt. But for those who study the skies, the story of those 14 young men who flew out into a crystal-clear afternoon and vanished into a blue phantom void remains an enduring reminder that there are still realms on this planet where the laws of nature bend and where the sky keeps its secrets forever.